Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. I'm Judy Cole. I'm the Executive Vice President of the MIT Alumni Association, and I'm delighted to see so many of you with us on this beautiful Saturday morning. So warm welcome to all of you, as well as the many alumni viewing this through our live webcast remotely. Tech Day is one of the association's signature programs that provides a window into some aspect of the exciting research that happens on this campus every day. Today's theme is the future of the planet Earth. I want to thank the Tech Day committee, whose names are on the back of your program, who in partnership with the association's staff, predominantly Lou Alexander, created and developed this program. I have one request before we start. Please make sure that your mobile devices are on silent or vibrate mode so that you don't accidentally disrupt our speakers. To start us off, we are particularly honored to have President Rafael Reif with us this morning. Rafael is the 17th president of MIT and has been instrumental in the development of edX, MIT's evolving presence in the area of online learning. And he is committed to the reinvention of higher education or post-secondary education for the future. Following President Reif's remarks, Professor Rob van der Hilst, head of the Department of Earth, Atmospheric, and Planetary Sciences, will come to the stage to lead today's program. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming President Rafael Reif to the podium.
Good morning, and it's really great to be here and great to see so many of you here today. It is really, looks like almost a full house. Thank you, Judy, for your remarks, and thank you for orchestrating this whole terrific event and the whole terrific weekend. I don't know whether I should also credit you for the weather, but thank you for that too. It doesn't matter. I want to spend a few minutes with you to tell you about how I view MIT now and in the future. The real stars clearly are the speakers that come after me, and they're going to talk to you about a topic that is one of my themes for the next few years, and I'm going to let them expand on that. So let me just give you what I would perhaps call my vision, or the view that I think that MIT should do in the next few years, and try to expand on that a little bit fairly quickly. Let me start by saying that you probably know or have heard that MIT is planning a capital campaign. We plan to launch it sometime at this time next year, thereabouts. But it's very important that I emphasize each time I use those words, that this is a campaign that we're not doing it because we believe that MIT needs it per se. We're doing it because, in our view, the world needs MIT to have a campaign, and I will explain what I mean by that. This is not a campaign for MIT, it's a campaign from MIT to the world. There are three very quick take-home messages that I would like to start with before I spend my few minutes explaining them. The first one is that, in my view, and I think in the view of many of you, MIT is and has been and will continue to be a great investment for society. And I say that so because MIT has brought great benefits for society, and I'll try to elaborate on those in a few minutes. The second take-home message is that MIT focuses on making significant contributions and breakthroughs on the world's greatest challenges and the world's most important and fundamental questions. So that's a very important message of ours, and I'll try to elaborate on that very quickly in a few minutes. And third, that those greatest challenges that we're going to be talking about in a moment, including the topic of this morning, are challenges that require urgent action. These are not things that we can just sit on and wait for things to happen. We have to address them now. So why do I say that MIT is a great investment for society? Well, it is so because of what happens at MIT, because of what our graduates do after they leave MIT, and because of what others do, taking advantage or benefiting from MIT's innovations. And I'll give you just a few quick examples of that. In terms of disciplines, MIT has created quite a few disciplines, and I would argue that the benefit to society is not what our graduates do, our graduates of those disciplines do, but those who graduated from those disciplines from other institutions. Let me explain. Chemical engineering was created at MIT. So in my simplistic analysis, chemies that have benefited society are a good benefit from MIT, but also those who graduate from other institutions in chemie are a good benefit coming from MIT. Molecular biology was created here. Biological engineering and bioengineering in general was created here. Information theory, which provides the foundations of everything dealing with communications and computation, was created right here. Artificial intelligence, metallurgy. The next one was created here. I don't know that we're very proud of it, but modern economics was created here. But let me say that nobody else came up with anything better, so there. So in my view, our graduates of those disciplines have been a great benefit to society. But these are just words, and in any MIT audience, people don't want to hear words, they want to hear data. So where is the data? So one way that I can think of providing data in numbers to support my notion that MIT is a great investment for society. So there are two things that MIT does extremely well: creating knowledge and applying knowledge to solve problems, applying knowledge to improve the quality of our life, applying knowledge in moving ideas to market, helping the economy, creating jobs. So how do I quantify what MIT has done in these two arenas, which are kind of connected but in opposite spectrum, creating knowledge and applying knowledge? Well, one way that I can think of providing data to support that MIT has been a great investment in the area of creating knowledge is looking at Nobel Prizes. So the world has been receiving the Nobel Prize have been awarded since 1901. The total number of individuals receiving Nobel Prizes since 1901 is exactly 847. How many of them come from MIT or were awarded, of course, while they were at MIT? 83. So nearly 10% of all the Nobel Prizes ever awarded have been given to graduates of MIT, or faculty or students, faculty, not students, after they graduated, before they were students, from MIT. But something even more remarkable, that MIT did not get its first Nobel Prize until 1944, because until then, we didn't have an in-depth program in science. It was mostly engineering and architecture and so forth. Since 1944, when we got the first Nobel Prize, there have been 642 Nobels awarded. From that, 83 would be 13%. And as a tidbit that I find interesting is the first, just to understand how Nobels and science impact society and innovation, the first Nobel that was awarded at MIT in 1944 was for the discovery of nuclear magnetic resonance, what we call NMR. And any of you, most of you know or have had access or have had to use MRIs, for instance. That's one of the many applications that came from that discovery of NMR in MIT in the mid-40s. And the recipient was actually associate director at the time of the MIT Rad Lab that was working very hard developing the radar technology. So in terms of applying knowledge, we have been, you would agree with me, a great investment for society. What about solving problems, helping the economy, creating jobs? Well, one simple measure of that, and there are two, let me just, because I'm trying to figure numbers that I can give you. So there are two areas in which I can find numbers. One way to think of it is patents. Let's look at patents. In the last 5 years, patents awarded to MIT people, total 859 US patents. And out of those patents, using MIT IP, 117 startups have been created in the last 5 years. Now, what does that mean? Well, simply, of course, companies created by our graduates are many more than 117. I'm talking about companies created using MIT IP. The most important relevance of those numbers is that those numbers are more than that of any other US university, actually any other global university. And in fact, if you were to list the top 6 universities in knowledge creation, in Nobel Prizes, and the top 6 universities in patent creation, which is applying knowledge, only one institution is in both lists, and that's MIT. And MIT is #1 in both lists. So again, that's another point that I'm making when I try to make the point of how great an investment for society this institution has been. A second measure is companies, of course. Most of you are familiar with Ed Roberts' report, which he's now updating the latest one using 2001 numbers. At the time, we have 125,000 alumni, and he, in his report, he stated that that number of alumni, 125,000, had created 26,000 active companies. Living alumni creating 26,000 active companies. Just look at the ratio, 5-to-1 alumni to company. This is the same institution that has produced all those Nobel Prizes. Those companies have employed, this is data for 2001, 3.3 million people with $2 trillion in annual revenues. And Ed Roberts wrote, if MIT were a nation, that would have been the 11th largest economy in the world, the MIT nation. Now, we have, to give you examples, there are some innovations in that list that you may be very proud of or very unhappy about. Email. Email was created by an MIT alum in 1971. The Ethernet was created as a precursor of the internet by an MIT graduate in 1973. Of course, the World Wide Web, the creator is a faculty member here. That was in 1989. Akamai, a company a few blocks from here, that handles a significant fraction of the World Web traffic, was created by an MIT faculty member as well. Now, what is remarkable is to think, what is that creates this environment? How come this institution has produced so much benefit to society? And that we can only speculate. What I just gave you are numbers, facts, and figures. The rest is speculation. But I think there are two points that I can elaborate very quickly on that. First, our mission statement. I think a mission statement is very important because it guides decisions on what to do and, more importantly, what not to do. And our mission statement attracts the people who are identifying themselves with a mission statement. And I'm not going to read the whole thing of the mission statement, but it's fascinating to read it and compare it with any other institution in the land that you're attracted to and see the contrast. But the highlights that I would like to say relevant to this conversation, it starts with advanced knowledge and educate students, and any good research university wants to do that. But it continues to say, bring knowledge to bear on the world's greatest challenges. Basically, not just advanced knowledge, use it. Use it to bear on the world's greatest challenges. And then ends with work for the betterment of humankind. And again, I challenge you to go and compare that mission statement with any other institution. And I think what's important is the following, that at the end of the day, what happens at MIT is very unique because of the people we attract. And all of you, most of you have been to MIT, have been students, so maybe you will identify what I say now, or you may not, and I'll be more than happy if I say something you don't feel identified with. But by and large, the MIT student, and I would add our faculty as well, when they are in high school, they belong to the minority in their class that have strong inclinations in STEM, in math, science, engineering, technology, and they are normally that small group, small fraction in their class that has that passion, that has those kinds of passion. They are always seen as a little bit different because they have those kinds of passions. Those same kids, when they come to MIT, very quickly discover that everybody here is like them, that they are no longer that group that is separate and different. The faculty came from the same kind of environment, and the combination is truly explosive. What they do together, how they realize they can help each other and incentivize each other and motivate each other is truly explosive. And I think that is why we have the environment we have. Just look at it this way. We admit about 8% of our students applying for our undergraduate program. Believe me if I tell you that if we take the next 8% in academic achievement, we wouldn't be able to tell the difference. The next group would have done just as well as the first group. And yet that group goes somewhere else. And you don't see any other institution producing that benefit to society that I just gave you about MIT. So that explosive situation here does make a huge difference. Okay, where are we heading? It is my view that we all want MIT to continue to be the strongest magnet for the most talented individuals in the planet. And I say continue to be because I strongly believe, judging by the numbers, that we are there now and we have been there for a while. But that doesn't mean that staying put and doing what we do today will allow us to be in the same place 10 years from now. The environment around us is changing. The social contract with the federal government in terms of research funding is changing. Other societies, other countries are investing heavily in education. The way students learn is now different. So we need to figure out how to lead to stay at the lead. So what are the things that I believe we need to do to continue to be that great magnet? Well, there are 4 themes, in my view, that we need to pay more attention to. There is a great number of things we do and we do great. These are 4 areas in which we're doing something and we need to do, in my view, more. So what are the 4 themes? One is basically reinventing the college experience. Really reinventing it. We need to have the classroom environment to be less passive and more interactive. And we need to figure out how to embrace digital technologies that students so much use to learn these days, and so how used they are to be learning from those technologies. We need to figure out how to use them to complement, not replace, complement classroom instruction. Use it to make the classroom instruction more dynamic. We need to figure out how to also worry about the outside classroom instruction. We have pioneered that whole arena many years ago. What students do outside the classroom in project teams, being mentored by faculty, is almost as important as what they learn in the classroom. And we have done a great job at it. We need to do more. We need to provide more flexibility to students to practice the ideas they think of themselves, as opposed to only be in organized ways within the curriculum. We have done, and we are working on those areas right now, and we have quite a number of successes on digital technology and an outside the classroom experience, but we're really on digital just scratching the surface, and there is much more work is needed. We also, in my view, have to address the global community, the global learning community. And because the impact, because of the potential huge impact of this globally. What do I mean by that? Judy mentioned edX and MITx. On edX, we have over 2 million learners. In fact, I just saw there was an article in the paper talking about the release of our data a couple of days ago. The potential impact is huge, and I'm going to give you just 2 examples of how the world is changing of that potential impact. 2 examples. One of them you might have heard or read because it was profiled by the New York Times a while ago. The other one, most of you probably have not heard. The first one is this kid from Mongolia who took the first MITx class we offered. We offered in MIT jargon, those of you who remember numbers, 6002. We call that 6002X for MITx. It's a circuits and systems class. It's a sophomore level class in course 6 in ECS. And we offered that to the world. And this 16-year-old kid, in a junior in high school in Mongolia, took the course. And out of 150,000 registrations, 300 got everything perfect, aced the course, 300 of them. This 16-year-old kid was one of them. That kid was a freshman at MIT, is now a rising sophomore, just finished his first year at MIT. He discovered us and we discovered him. And his life has changed forever, and he did very well. But there's another story, that was profiled in the New York Times. This other kid, he is from Jabalpur, India. He took the same course. He did not get to be one of the 300 that aced the course, but he got 97% of the course right. So it was pretty close. This kid was also, at the time, a high school junior, but somewhere else, as I said, in India. That was 6002X, as I said. So when he finished, he wanted to take the next course, 6003X, of course, Signals and Systems. We let him know that we don't have it. I mean, it wasn't being offered at the time. So this kid got pretty bothered by that and contacted two other kids that he did not know, because these are two other kids taking the same class with him and with the kid from Mongolia, but they didn't know each other. These two other kids is one from Montreal, Canada, and one from Bangalore, India. And they said the following to each other, all virtual. Look, we already have 6003 content. It's in OCW. MIT has everything on OCW, OpenCourseWare. The only problem is it's not tutorial. But that's easy. I mean, we have edX. We know exactly what we want. We want something like edX. Why don't we ourselves write the code of something similar to edX? They wrote the code, these three kids. They put the OCW content of 6003 into their code, into their learning platform. They called that course 6003Z, and they offered it to the world. And these three kids, using MIT content with an MIT idea, they got 1,100 registrations. People learning from them about MIT stuff. The world is changing rapidly. The kid from Jabalpur, India, this kid with a 97%, he also came to MIT as a freshman. He also did extremely well. He's a rising sophomore. So the world is changing, and in my view, we just have to lead that change. The second theme is on health and healthcare. That could be a topic of another whole morning of discussions in a future tech day. The focus here is basically on early detection, early diagnosis, continuous monitoring. You know, one of the major issues that affects our health and healthcare cost is that, you know, we have an annual physicals with the physicians, and when things go well, there is a problem, and there is those physicals gets discovered, and hopefully get discovered early enough. We need to go into a mode in which we need to find ways to early detect and early diagnose whatever things is ailing us. And that requires continuous monitoring technologies. And you know what? There is a great deal we're doing at MIT that could really, really help. And let me give you just a few examples of that very quickly. We have a faculty member, Paula Hammond, that she found a way that by using nanoparticles in your blood flow, those nanoparticles can find, in the domain of cancer, can find the cancer cells and can find ways to deploy the therapy to the cancer cells and only to the cancer cells. So without destroying, without attacking the neighboring healthy cells. We have another faculty member, Sankita Bhatia, who's using a similar technology. But what she's doing is using nanoparticles in the blood flow to basically detect when something is wrong. There is a way to let us know. I won't go into the details there. And in some cases, already in some types of cancer, not just detect, but address unload a therapy. We have another faculty in the area of remote diagnosis, Bill Freeman, who using advanced video image processing, today he can detect your pulse rate from your video image of your face. We have another faculty, Ananta Chandakasan, that is well known, but he's taken advantage of the fact that all of us in our inner ears, in our cochlea, we have chamber filled with ions. Those charges are used to power some of the functions in the brain and hearing and so forth. Well, they found ways to insert medical devices instead of powering those with batteries, they are being powered by those charges in the cochlea, in your inner ear. And they have found a way to do it without affecting the other functions of the brain, the functions of hearing and so forth. And those implantable devices could be used to address and monitor response to therapies and so forth. The point is, there is a whole domain of areas in which we can use technology to have early detection and diagnosis of what ails us. And that has many consequences, not just good for our health, of course, but also in terms of healthcare cost. The third theme has to be with the health of the planet. And I won't say a great deal about that. You have terrific speakers to cover that. That's an important area for us. It's an important area for our future. One of the focus of that domain, and there are quite a few focus, you'll hear quite a few of them this morning, is on the area of water security. There is a huge, very tight nexus between energy, water, food, urbanization. And as population growth, there is the demand for energy will increase, the demand for food will increase, the demand for urbanization will increase. We already have 50% of population going in cities, and that will grow even further. All those three areas of demand require water. Where is all that water going to come from? In the view of many, and that's my view definitely, water could be the next oil. Very abundant in some places and completely absent in other places. And there are already places in the world that are going to war to fight for access to water. You'll hear about that and much more on this health of the planet topic by our speakers later. And the fourth one, very quickly, is on liberating the human potential for innovation. I'll give you just two very quick examples on that, what I mean. In developing societies, large companies, they used to, 30 years ago, they used to create their own innovation. They used to have their own research and development laboratories to create innovation. Those days are pretty much over. Those companies, the way they innovate, basically the way they continue to stay dynamic, is by looking at the landscape, seeing which companies are created that are small, that have potential, and buy them. So the ecosystem of a dynamic economy requires places like MIT and others, of course, to move ideas to the marketplace, to create those startups that some of them will grow and become big, of course, but some of them basically are there to help large companies become stronger. That whole ecosystem requires a great deal of attention. MIT does a great deal of work and does extremely well with numbers of innovation. I just gave you some. I could give you many more numbers. We're doing extremely well there, but believe me, we could do even better. And our students could benefit much, much more on that. So that's an area in which I would like us to focus. And finally, globally, I think the domain of innovation could do a great deal for jobs. So let me very quickly explain that. I'm convinced that what we're doing with edX and MITx will be terrific, will be tremendous, will reach large numbers of people and will provide them some kind of an education. Clearly not the one they would have at MIT, but some kind, better than what they have access to right now. But in developed societies, an education allows us to trade that education for a job or to trade that education for an improvement in our job situation. In societies which are in development, in many of them, there are no jobs. So what do we do? What good do we do by helping people get a better instruction, better education, if there is no way for them to trade them into jobs? So it's almost together with education, together with that kind of instruction, we also need to offer, if we want to care about jobs and stability in the world, we want to also explain, teach people how to look, not just with using education, how to look at their environment and look what is needed and figure out how to create their own jobs. Basically, how to teach innovation, how to teach entrepreneurship. So for that reason, I think the whole domain of innovation for our own benefit at MIT and in the nation, but globally, is something we should do. So those are the 4 themes: reinventing college, using technology for biomedicine, early detection, diagnosis, the health of the planet, you'll hear plenty about that in a few minutes, and innovation. Let me just conclude with a true story, a partial version of it. I said yesterday, for those of you who for some reason were at commencement, when I became president, a group of students came to me, this is 2 years ago, and said, look, you know, you're going to be a new president. You know, we have gone through some rough times. We want to be available to offer you advice. So they strongly convinced me that I needed their advice. And it turns out to be true eventually, but of course, I didn't know that at the beginning. And so they identified themselves who was going to give me advice, and they were a group of 8 students, 4 undergrads and 4 grad students. And they called themselves my Presidential Transition Advisory Cabinet. We met every month. We met for about an hour every month or so. They were really terrific. The main agreement is we meet in my office. What we discuss there stays there. We just talk candidly about everything and anything, but it stays there. And it was great. And they really, really did give me great advice. At the end of the year, they decided that they were very successful. So they decided that experiment, you know, is done. So they were no longer going to be my Presidential Transition Advisory Cabinet. They will just drop the transition part. They'll be my Presidential Advisory Cabinet. So I had them again for the 2nd year, and I'm going to have them again for next year. And again, last year they were extremely helpful. But at one of the meetings, the hour went on, and I had to finish, and they were eager discussing something with me, and it was very productive, but I had to go. So I told them, look, we have to stop. I gotta go. I was in my office with them, and they really would not let me leave. I mean, they were basically saying, "Where are your cabinet? I mean, what more important thing you have to do than talking to us?" So I didn't know how to get out of there. So basically, I said, look, I need to meet a group of alumni that are the ones who make it possible for you to be here. Which was true. I was going to greet the William Barton Rogers Society. So that stunned them. I mean, they were shocked and silent. So I took a beehive to the door. And so at the door, I looked back at them, and I said, do you want me to convey a message from you to them? And then one of them said, actually, yes. One of them said, please tell them that MIT is a gift to the world. And I was quite touched by that. I mean, these students are telling me that they recognize the value of MIT, and I was really very moved by that. The next day, I had a corporation meeting. And so I was so moved by that story that at the corporation meeting, I told that story. And then, and I thought, I mean, they were going to be delighted to hear that our students think of MIT that way. Well, one of the young members stood up and went to the microphone that was in the corridors and said, that's not the complete story. And I said, well, what did we do wrong now? So he said, that's not the whole story. The real story is that a gift to MIT is a gift to the world. I hope many people will agree with that in our campaign. Thank you very much.